Yes, good morning. Good morning. Oh, and you just cannot imagine how grateful I am to be here this weekend. We are having such a good time together. Oh my goodness, yes. And clicker, and yes, a month of whole no matter what, with a focus today on what we believe about wholeness. Well, what do we teach about wholeness? Let's go to Ernest Holmes, founder of this teaching, author of The Science of Mind. What did he have to say about what we teach? What do we teach? It is very simple. God is all there is. There isn't anything else. There never was, never will be. That is what I am. There is nothing else I can be. I am compelled to be that. And of course, he capitalized T in that. Okay, that's the truth that we stand on. That is the first and foremost rock that we build this whole philosophy on. And then, of course, if we say, I am that, we also have to say, so is everybody else. That's a little trickier sometimes, is it not? That is the truth for the person that we don't like very much. That's the truth for the person that might not think like we think. That's the person who disagrees with us about some very big stuff or little stuff. The person that gets under our skin. That's the truth of everybody, because if it's a oneness, if it's a wholeness, we are all inside it. There is nothing outside that circle that is God. Deep breath. That's what we teach. And yeah, we've got generations and centuries and millennia of stories we've told others that say that's not true. So we got a lot of uncovering to do, a lot of unlearning to do, a lot of unothering to do. And that's the work that we do as we dive deeper into this philosophy. And that's why I'm calling today's talk, Loving the Whole Fam Damily. Okay? The ones we love and don't like very much. Anybody got any of them in their circle? Oh, goodness. So this is going to feel like it's way off track, but trust me, it's not. This is the way my mind works. It goes way off in left field, and then I discover why, because it all relates and comes back to what we need to teach ourselves. Tell you a story about the only time that I've actually lived in California. I've visited many, many times over the years, but the only actual residence here was a year I spent in the high desert, Mojave Desert, down by Victorville and Adelanto, young wife and mother. My husband was in the Air Force, stationed at George Air Force Base, which is now defunct, out there in the middle of, it's not so nowhere anymore. Every time I drive through, it's built up some more. But back then, it was really empty. So it was the first time in my life I had ever lived in open space. And it was the first time I had ever lived in desert. And we rented this little bitty house in the middle of nowhere. And one of our chief recreational activities was to just walk out into the desert and discover it, because, oh my goodness, lots of neat stuff out there. And one thing was all of the roads around us were just hardpan, not even gravel. About every couple of months, the road grader came through and took another layer of washboard off the top of things, which meant all the roads were a little bit lower than the surface of the desert around them. So if you got about 10 feet off the road and looked back, you couldn't see that there'd ever been a road at all, right? Thank God he had a good sense of direction, or I'd still be wandering out there. So on one of those excursions, we came across this really strange thing in the middle of nowhere. And that was this big square that was laid out with sun-bleached, sun-rotted squared timbers, big square of timbers, the round hole inside that square. Looked down into absolute darkness. And we realized it was a well. It was a hand-dug well. Okay, and being curious, you gotta do this, right? You wonder how deep it is. You wonder if there's still water in it. Pick up a stone, drop it in, start to count. 1 potato, 2 potato. Nothing, right? We turn away, start to walk away. We hear this plunk. There's water way down there. And that got me thinking about the person that dug that well. I mean, my goodness, can you imagine what it took to just pick up a shovel and a bucket and a rope and somebody to start lowering you down when you got below this deep in it, and to keep going, to keep going. The faith that took, the faith that there was water eventually, the commitment to, okay, if I'm going to raise a family here, we need a source of water. The intention to make that happen. Deep breath again. Wow. And realizing, see, we got to relate it here somewhere. That's what we do when we dig down into a truth that's down in, underneath all the surface confusion that we've generated, right? We have to have faith that it's in there. We have to set the intention to do the work, to clarify, to deepen, to ground in something that's way bigger than things we've told ourselves about how the world is and how the world works. That's how the science of mind invites us into what one friend in Santa Fe calls the truth that has always been true. Because it's in there. It's in there. Okay, let's go back to the surface again. When we stand in that truth, how do we live it up on the surface? How do we live it intentionally in how we participate in connecting with and communicating with others, the proverbial others? And some goes back to just how we name things, how we name people, how we name the place they live, how we name the religion they practice. Are we listening when they tell us what they want to be called? Are we listening to their name and their pronouns and their truth about themselves? Are we intentionally honoring that? Because again, there's a whole large cultural context that says you don't always do that, right? Living in New Mexico, living in Santa Fe area for many years, noticed that the surrounding pueblos were, it's kind of wonderful. It's one of the only places in the US where the First Peoples are still living in the villages that they were living in before anybody from Europe got here. And yet, one of the patterns you see a bunch is when the Spanish first came through that area, for many of those villages, their first action was to start building a church and name the church after one of their favorite patron saints, and then rename the whole village for that saint and say, here's your name, guys, and aren't you proud of your new name? And it's very cool to see that just in the last couple of decades, many of those pueblos have said, you know what, we never let go of our real name, And how about if the rest of you start calling us by that, please? So we've got stuff like, one of my favorites is San Juan Pueblo is now Oke Awinge. Well, Oke Awinge in Tewa means village of the strong people. That's a name, yes, take that back, right? But another thing I've noticed is that, and I think I'm very tickled by this, is that evolution doesn't always go in this linear straight line into upper echelons. Sometimes it bounces. Sometimes there's a brilliant moment, even when the whole pattern was lower level than what we're trying to live now. And that is that occasionally in New Mexico, the Spanish wouldn't just do that pattern, but they'd actually ask the people, what's your name? Okay, that happened to one small village that's just north of Santa Fe, that when the Spanish asked that question, the people said, our name is Posuege Owinge. It means drinking water place, village. Okay, and the Spanish try and hear that, run it through their forms and so on, and what they came up with and fed back was, I'm hearing Pohuake. And the locals said, well, close, thanks for trying. Okay, we'll be okay with that. You can call us Pohuake. What they didn't count on was that a couple hundred years later, the English speakers coming along would look at how the Spanish spelled that out phonetically and went, what? I mean, what? What is that word? Okay. If you're local and you hear it all the time, you just say Powaki. But when you see it on the sign on the highway, which till just a few decades ago, the spot on the highway was just mostly a stop sign and a Lotta-Burger and a laundromat and signs that said that, you'd be a little bit confused. Okay, so this is a true story. Friends of mine who are archaeologists working on a project in the area, and they stop in at the Lotta-Burger in Powaki for lunch. And the kid behind the counter is a teenage member of the Pueblo. He's even wearing his hair in the classic, they sleek it back, they tie it in this kind of loop of loose bun and tie it off with a cord or a ribbon, and it's quite beautiful. He's behind the counter. The people in front of my friends are Texas tourists, which is a whole, if you've ever lived in New Mexico, that's a whole nother othering story, and I'm still recovering from that, bless the Texans. Okay, so the Texas tourists get up to the front of the line and they say, okay, before we order, you gotta help us out here. You gotta tell us how to pronounce the name of this place. And that kid looks him straight in the eye and says very carefully, Lotta-Burger. Okay? Now, I don't tell you that story just for the laugh, though. The laugh is wonderful. The laugh is one of the ways we've got this outer demonstration of the inner connection, because we wouldn't share a laugh if we didn't share something deeper. The story itself, the language itself, the fact that we can talk to each other is proof of that underneath. Because, as Ernest says, again, the God that is in you is the God that is in me, and that is how I can talk to you. And the God in you will respond, and that is how you can talk to me. As above, so below. It's all connected, and yes, we are all one inside the one. Okay. But that said, we look at all the communication that isn't just a happy laugh, right? We look at all the communication that's a little bit ugly, and a little bit angry, and a little bit othering, and a little bit confusing, and we say, how can that be wholeness? How can that be oneness? And whether it's on this subject of knowing each other on any level, or taking it to abundance or to health or to anything that's showing up for us, how do we reconcile that difference in appearance? And I was blessed to hit this quote from Ernest Holmes that I had not seen before that really gives me a handle on how to explain how that works and what to do about it. And that is this: our whole practice is based on the concept that God is where we are and what we are. Sensing a theme here? Yeah. And that there isn't anything else. That whatever appears to be wrong is not wrong in itself, but is the wrong arrangement of what is right. So the power of thought, the power of mind, the power of speaking our word can be arranged in a way that blesses our connection to each other, or it can be malarranged into something that isn't working as well. And then what we get to do about it is that amazing tool that Ernest gave us, that is another basis of what we practice as religious scientists in the science of mind, and that is our spiritual mind treatment, our affirmative prayer, which isn't about telling anybody else how they should change, and it isn't about telling anybody out there what they should give us. It's about talking to ourselves until we remember this bigger truth, arguing with what we might have misunderstood and rearranging it into a bigger knowing of the truth. That's what spiritual mind treatment is for. That's how it works. So, another story. Many years ago, again, I am co-teaching a foundations class, and one of our students is a young woman who works a cosmetics counter at one of the big department stores. So you've got women at the different counters representing the different cosmetics and fragrance companies. And they've got a man that's their supervisor who also happens to be the world's biggest jerk. Okay, this man is unhappy, he's angry, he's miserable, and he's doing his level best to make everybody else miserable. And these women hate to see him coming. And this woman in our class says, okay, you're teaching me how to do treatment. I know something and someone I'm going to treat for. I'm going to treat for that boss and make a difference there. And my co-teacher said, sounds great, and here are some guidelines. There are some rules. First of all, you're not fixing him because he's not broke, okay? This isn't about something's wrong with him and we're gonna make it right. This is more about rearranging our thought. Second is he didn't give you permission to pray for him, so you cannot get specific about what ought to happen for him or to him or as him. That said, you can know for yourself the truth of who he is. You can know the presence of God individuated as him. You can know the love and light that is the core of his being. And your knowing of that is going to resonate outward and something's going to shift. That's the work you can do. Can you do that? And she says, yes, I can. So a week passes, next class comes around. She cannot wait to share her demonstration. She says, it's just so cool. All the other counter women are coming up to me and whispering, "What did you do to him? Did you put a spell on him? He was nice to me today." Okay, a shift happened because of the work she did in rearranging her own thought inside her mind, inside the one mind inside. That's how it happens. That's how it works. So, homework assignment for you. In your own spiritual practice, in your own prayer work this week, I know you do prayers for the people that you love, okay? Now, I invite you to do a prayer for somebody you don't like very much. And it can be local and personal. It can be the annoying neighbor or the obnoxious coworker. It can be someone in customer service. Or take it broader, take it bigger. Take it somebody on the world stage who is doing damage. And just be in the truth of who they are and the love and the light, and see what happens in your owning that truth for and about them. This, folks, this is how we lay the foundation for a world that works for everyone. Maybe from there you will get some insight in what is yours to do in the outer, okay? And maybe what's yours to do is just the prayer work. What if? Trust it. Lean into it. You can never go wrong with love and light. This is how we're going to shift the consciousness and the energy and the evolution of this world that we live in. This is why we're here and what we're doing about it. And let's take that into prayer. And again, notice I speak in first person because that's who I'm talking to. If these words feel good to you, take them as your own, please. So I know there's only one life, one infinite power, one presence, one love, one intelligence. And we call it God or Spirit or Source. We give it all kinds of names, and it answers to any and all of those names. Because it is genuinely, truly all there is. And that one life loves itself and lives itself as every individual in its creation, and as every interaction between those individuals, no exceptions. One life celebrating being itself as who I am, as who we are. So standing in that, trusting it, owning that. I speak my word, a word of connection, a word of communication, a word of love in action, a word of healing for my own perception of things and healing for this beloved planet that we live on, that we serve. And something is shifting. I know that. I speak it. I claim it. And I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for how good it feels to say it right here, right now. I'm grateful for what shows up in my experience in the next moment and the next day and the next year, because something has been set in motion here. And in that gratitude, I simply let it go and I let it be. And together we say, and so it is. Thank you.